I'm joined by Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
It is great to be with you. Hello.
Yesterday I forgot to hit record on something I was doing, and I thought, oh, I'm supposed to be like a trained professional. I mean, I'm not trained or professional, but I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And it really annoyed me, and it took me a little while to overcome the fact that I'd forgotten to do something really, really obvious, like an interview like this, and I forgot to hit record. Now, I've joked about this in the past, how I did it one time, got 15 minutes in, and the person that's a first radio interview on a Zoom as well. And they were really happy because we could start again, and they were less stressed because they got really panicked about it.
Mm.
Yes, it annoyed me because I never make mistakes intentionally. I'm just never that sort of a person. But why does it sometimes the really, really simple things just completely make us lose all our sense of train of thought and all the stuff we normally do? And it took me a good 10 minutes to get over it.
Yeah, yeah. And that is the phenomenal thing about the way that our bodies work in how it affects, basically, that's executive functioning. It's that ability to think and to process and to be, absolutely spot on in what you're doing and the way that you're thinking. Something comes in, something unexpected, something that you are annoyed about because you know you can do better. So it hits those emotional centers, which sends off a whole range of different neurochemicals in the body, which then impact our regulation, our calmness, our sense of our heart rate, even because of that annoyance. And it's as soon as you get any kind of feelings involved in anything, that's why it's really important that we capture what those feelings are, acknowledge them, and deal with them as soon as we possibly can in order to help bring that regulation. And then from a regulated state, we can then start to think properly again. But yeah, you would have been absolutely fine until you realized you did it. And as soon as you did it, it's like, oh, the instantaneous reaction of what happens physiologically to your body would set anybody off, especially if you're concerned and you're doing it for somebody else and you're doing it for the radio. So that's not within it, not what you want at all.
Which brings me back to a very, very frequently recurring point between us, which is that generally speaking, I would say I have a pretty good sensory health. I generally am not over or underreactive, but I have been quite tired. And there are various things going on. I make one mistake, and the thing that I think, oh well, never mind, move on, suddenly was, I can't believe I've done this. What an idiot. How can I not? And all of a sudden, the normal stuff that you just chuck away is not a problem becomes a huge problem. But if you are not doing well in your sensory health, and I guess I probably wasn't yesterday, all of a sudden the small things become really not just big things, but the everything things.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that I think is more my message recently is that because we're all sensory beings and we're all processing sensory input all the time, it's those external things when they bring up stress in the body, it so exacerbates sensory sensitivities in particular. Or somebody was telling me during the week, basically when their son gets too giddy, he just completely loses the plot. His whole coordination goes, everything just goes there. And it's like, oh crumbs. But yes, and that's what happens, that regulation within the brain. It isn't just affecting emotions, it isn't just affecting your thinking, but it literally can affect your whole body and the whole body function as well. It's really important that we can, yeah, capture those thoughts, but learn how to stay in a calm, alert state, which is one of the core phrases that we use within occupational therapy and sensory health and sensory integration and processing to keep people in that calm, regulated, content space.
Because it does matter. But if you are generally not somebody with a good sensory health, we're not talking about a one-off because you had a bad sleep. And this is the recurring theme that we keep on coming back to. I'm generally okay, but yesterday I wasn't so good. I forgot to hit record and bad moment. But if that's your norm, if you're not generally in a good sensory health, that's when we're looking in and kind of parachuting into a situation. We're taking a glance and thinking, oh, what's wrong with you? Just get a grip, whatever it might be. But we're not seeing the whole picture because anything that's kind of about our minds, it's very, very hard for us to see the reality of that, because a broken leg, you have it in a cast, broken leg. We're going to be very much thinking about that. Somebody who's partially sighted or fully blind has a big white stick. Okay, we're going to see that and give them some space. But somebody who's just overreactive, there's no white stick and there's no cast for us to see. Therefore, how would we do better as people who are in a generally good sensual health place of not making judgments that are they're stupid, they're clumsy, they're annoying? Actually, it's none of those things. That's just our take on it, because actually, do you know what? They generally don't have a good sensual health. So therefore they're not going to be generally like everybody else.
Mm. I love it if we can get into nurseries. Let's speak to our littlies who have such a little, who are so non-judgmental until society trains them,
Yeah.
or their family, or whatever it is. There is a beautiful time of that complete acceptance of other people and who they are and how they are. And how can we as a society keep capturing that and keep reinforcing that this is all really positive, that every single behavior that we see, there is a reason behind it. Now, we won't always get to it, we won't always understand, but if people know, look, it could be trauma, it could be their social background, it could be their finances, it could be somebody with a disability, it could be somebody with just a bereavement going on, it could be, I think if we can layer in so that their people's first response is to ask why rather than respond immediately to any behavior that isn't nice. And we do know that it's not nice. I was in the swimming pool the other day, and there was someone who just kind of gave off to me in the pool, and it's just like, well, yeah, I was just like completely, I don't know what has gone on here. And I chatted to the manager afterwards because it was just like such a bizarre thing. And all he said was, we just have to put it down. Just say she had a bad day. And it's just like there are sometimes you have no idea what was going on, why it was. Nobody else could understand what was happening. Something has obviously set somebody off for a reason, and I just happened to be the person on the receiving end of it. But nobody could get it either. And it's like you just have to accept it. But I would. It was very tempting for a short while. I'm not that reactive a person, but it wasn't pleasant, and I was nearly tempted, put it that way, nearly tempted to say something back, and I didn't. I thought, no, let's just pause and step back. But I did need to go and speak to someone. It wasn't as if I could just totally just let it go. I did need to go and speak to somebody just to reflect on that situation. But we all, if we can all build a pause into our life to think, don't react, do not react straight away, think first, and then decide what might be the best course of action going forward. But we just need compassion right at the very onset. Anything that is not pleasant, don't react to it. Ask why. And if it helps, ask what's their problem, so that you're automatically thinking that there's a problem here, not that you're the problem. That's a nice one as well.
Which has just given me the topic for today. This is the thing, though. People can react, and there is bad behavior. It's if you're in a really, really bad mental health place, then bad behavior is still bad behavior, and there are still consequences to that. We can't just think, oh well, they're having a bad day, we'll let them just beat up somebody in the wind. It's not their fault. No, it's still a violent crime, and they should still be seen to by the police, go through the courts, and go to prison if they've done that. But there is running alongside making sure we actually adhere to the law, the fact that it's that why word. You said what I was going to ask you about, but it feels like as a society we're less inclined to ask why or what's going on. We're more inclined to state what is going on without knowledge. It's like the Google doctor, isn't it? You can go and see somebody who's been in medicine 15 years. You can go and Google it. I know better than you. Well, actually, in some ways, that is possible. You might actually have a piece of information they don't, because they don't know everything. However, it does need to be absorbed through the filter of medical people who actually know their job. Even if you do have that piece of information, they don't. It's quite possible. But if we go in arrogantly, well, it's not going to end well, because we don't really understand it. And I think maybe it's that kind of, I don't know, that we can go on Google and get the answer, so we know, but actually possibly not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there are so many. Somebody else was talking about a vestibular. Was it? So there was something else connected to the vestibular system. And I thought, obviously, the vestibular system is one of my, I love it. You know, it's our movement sense, it's in the inner ear. It tells us which way up we are, our head tilting or moving or spinning or upside down. It's a powerful sense for grounding people as to where they are, for being very, it helps people be very, very secure in themselves and in their bodies when they have a well integrated vestibular system. Now, she was talking about a vestibular something that I didn't know about. And I thought, well, yeah, I don't know everything that there is to do with the vestibular system, because some of it is physical. Some of it is purely physical that leads into a physical health issue, because it's about the structure or the problems within the vestibular system itself. My vestibular bit is about the processing of it, and if there's an issue with the processing. So yeah, I think it's important for us, maybe it is humility, to have the humility that actually we know what we know, but we won't know everything, and we're not expected to know everything. It's where do we fit? Where does our piece of the puzzle fit with what someone's trying to do or what they're trying to work out, and not expecting that you'll know everything, because none of us can.
Okay, before we get to the topic idea, what's your favorite sense to work with and why?
Ooh. Do you know, you had me going about three different directions all at the same time then, because I was going, oh, I love the vista, and then I'm thinking, oh, but proprioception, the muscle and the joints, it's just so safe. But then I also love deep touch pressure, because I'm a very tactile person, and I will always, anybody wants to give me a hug anytime, come and give me a hug, because I love the tactile system, and the sense of touch is so beautiful and so powerful, and it's a lovely one for connecting with people, and I like to connect with people. But I probably would have to say the proprioceptive system, which is our muscles and joints, anything that demands a bit of muscle work, because it is so good. It brings, when people are highly stressed, it brings people down. And if they're not well coordinated, or they're a bit like lethargic, it just brings people up, and it gets them doing things better, as well as feeling better. So and it's a very safe one. I haven't yet known anybody who can kind of like overdose on proprioception. Whereas vestibular, you can easily make yourself sick or somebody else very disorientated very easily. And so you have to watch. Vestibular system, yeah, watch that one.
Right. Sensory healthy financial decision making.
Poof. Right.
So
Okay.
I remember one time I'd passed my motorbike license. So I went out to go and buy a motorbike, which makes sense. And I thought, well, what am I going to buy? I'll try and find the one that I learned to drive on or learn to ride on, because I know where all the buttons are. I know they don't massively move from bike to bike, but I kind of know the bike. I sort of know where the weight is and all that. So I'm going to go with that. So I went shopping and I found one, and I felt this giddy excitement. And I was very conscious of how excited I was to have the bike, knowing that I wanted to buy one, and all the sort of internal excitement started to overwhelm myself, and making a good financial decision was something I was very conscious of. I need to take a step back. So I rang Jo and talked to her, and we took a thought out process to look at the bike. But the thing is, the initial excitement of I've passed my motorbike test, and now I'm going to go and buy a motorbike, which is what I was going out to try and find one. But the excitement then starts to take over. Now I recognize that and thought, that's a bit too much. I need to step back a bit, because I'm excited. I can go actually go buy a proper real motorbike. And it was exciting. So that's a good thing. But the good thing can become a bad thing if we don't keep that in check, which is why we keep on talking about self-control. So in that one, I went back to Jo and said, what do you think? And we talked it out. But making a good financial decision, especially any kind of what we call a capital purchase, bigger items. I'm not talking about the thick slice or the medium slice. Okay. We're not talking about that, but bigger stuff that's impactful on us for 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. How do we do that well in terms of making sensory healthy choices?
So we need to prepare the body to be in the right place first. It's kind of going back to initially what we were talking about, the sense of executive functioning. Decision making is an executive function. It's a high order cognitive process in the frontal lobe primarily. So it is very much higher cortical, and we want the brain to be in as regulated as a place as possible, so that it is free. That very the part of the cortex that is involved in that decision making, we want it to be absolutely as spot on as possible. If you're going for an exam, if you're going to buy a purchase, especially when it comes to finances, so that you don't get yourself in Sturm for years to come. You need to be in a very good mindset, and that involves that utterly balanced and organized and regulated state for your brain to be in, so that because dopamine hits, you get that excitement, you get the nervous system, you get all the neurons firing around your brain and around your body, and that excitement comes in, and it's not a good time. It is not a good time to make a decision. So with everybody, I think pause is going to be the big word for this one, right way through the podcast. It's like let's pause, enjoy it, actually enjoy the feeling, because it is a nice feeling, and sometimes we just need that feeling, but we don't have to then act on it straight away, because that's probably not going to be the right decision for us. So we need to bring in those regulation strategies. Go for a walk around the block, just go for a run up and down, just go and sing or hum, or just put some music on, just deep breathe, walk around the shop, just take some time out and pay attention to how fast your heart is beating. Pay attention to the excitement levels. As I say, enjoy it, but don't act on it, which is it's kind of hard, but it's also absolutely key to not getting yourself in trouble when it comes to financial decisions.
I do. I mean, we think about salespeople, but I do remember being trained. I worked for electrical retailer Tandy, long gone, sadly. But I worked for them. And one of the things we were taught about, and we were exceedingly well trained, by the way, for that job, far more than you think is possible. But one of the things that what got me was learning about selling. How do you sell to people? And there were various techniques we were taught to use and all the rest of it, because we're based on commission. So you want to make more sales. But that's why it's important when we're trying to make a bigger purchase, a car, for example. Housing, maybe it's a bit harder to get quite so excited because it's a different thing. But having bought houses, it's not the same as buying a car or a motorbike. But actually, they want us to make the purchase. They don't want us to walk in and walk away. So they're going to do all sorts of things. And I guess from a Century Healthy perspective, if we're going in a good Century Healthy place, then we're less likely to allow all the kind of stuff that's going around. And let's be honest, salespeople, they want to make money. It's a job. They're going to try and trigger your senses, in a sense, to generate that excitement in order to make that purchase. And they've got a job to do. We understand that. But it's the Century Healthy aspect that I'm more curious about, of how do we then make sure that we don't make a stupid decision, and there's regulation, but the self-control thing keeps on coming back in some of our chats over the last, I don't know, 6-12 weeks. It's being, I suppose, like Joe said, can you walk away from it? If you can't walk away from it, then you've got to walk away from it, which is quite a good thing. If you can't make a decision, and it's like, walk away. And if you can't walk away, then you must walk away, because that is actually an attitude of self-control, because unless you're going to die from it, it's not that important.
And it's like it's doing something like something silly that literally, when you feel as though you can't walk away, I would jump up and down. I would like literally go up and down on the balls of your feet, up and down and up and down. If you are feeling that temptation, get it out physically. Because it's that impulse, it's that lack of impulse control. And we need to use the sensory strategies, use proprioception, use those muscles and joints. You might not be able to do kind of like press ups on the car showroom floor kind of thing, but you might be able to just like go up on your toes. Yes, it looks a bit odd, but goodness me, is it going to save your bank balance if you're going to be tempted to do something, to physically do something, if you can't actually literally jump up and down? Or walk out would be good, but sometimes you just can't, and you just can't get out of the place. But you do something, or clench, squeeze your hands and then release it. Squeeze your whole body, even if you're standing there. If you can't even go up on your toes, do something physical to try and give you that little bit of physical help to get some form of self-control. So just squeeze your whole body, count to 10, and then release it again. And just say, look, just tell the salesperson, hang on a minute, I've just got to do something. And you can be as discreet or as obvious as you can. So just do something physical to get some form of regulation, because if you can't walk away, you have to, but literally physically you're not able to. You have to do physically something. Bring down those arousal levels so that you can be in a bit more controlled in what you do next, whether it be speaking or actually physically walking out, or saying, I'll be back this time tomorrow, I'll be back. Give yourself some breathing space, literally.
And I guess part of that is we don't, it's okay to be excited. And this is one of those things. It's like if you're overweight, then you can't just not eat. And you should enjoy eating, but maybe the problem isn't that you're enjoying it, you're just eating too much or the wrong things. In the same context, we have to make big financial purchases, and everything's relative. You know, if I'm going to buy a motorbike back in, I don't know, 2010, I might be spending 2,000 quid. You know, Tom Cruise comes along. The budget isn't the issue, but it's the same basic principle of, do you really need this? Can you walk away from this? Are you sure? And actually, everything is relative because where I was reading, Sweden or Finland, I think if you're caught driving over speed in one of those countries, your fine is proportionate to your salary. So if you're on lots of money, it's going to hurt you as much as if you have not very much money. I quite like that. But anyway,
Oh, that's good.
everything is relative, and it is important to think about that. But it's trying to make good decisions without taking away the excitement of buying my first motorbike. That's an exciting moment. If we're not careful and we're too, I suppose, too conservative in our trying to keep things inside us, all of a sudden now we're squashing and repressing excitement. That's good, but it's trying to find the balance so that we have a sufficiently sensible amount of excitement. That's okay. I was excited by my first motorbike. Yes, I should be, but not so much excitement that it overrides our own brains.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think actually I really like when you first introduced this, you were talking about the fact that it was the right height for you, it was the right weight for you. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. That is what I would be looking to also make sure it's a sensory healthy purchase, that what you are intending to buy actually meets your sensory thumbprint, meets your sensory needs. Because for you, or for some people, having a really light bike is like, nah, it's like, it just doesn't do it, So it's like, know what those things are so that once you have bought something, it is genuinely as satisfying and as good for you as the rush of actually having bought it. Hopefully it's not quite so much an adrenaline rush, or a dopamine rush. That we do want that little something, but we want the after effects. So you've assessed the sounds, maybe, what is the sound that comes out of the exhaust? What pitch, how much resonance does it need to have to make you feel good when you're riding that bike? So you've got the sounds of it. What about the smells of, what do you have electric bikes? I don't know if they're electric, motorbikes these days and, the weight of it and the size of it. How far are you putting your arms? How far are you putting your legs? Like, what's your angle? What's your vestibular system doing? How far are you tilting your head forwards? Some people might prefer to be further up. Some people might love to be, really quite prone, what we call it, the head's flat. So it's assess all of that from a sensory perspective: sight, sound, smells, touch. Hopefully you'll not be tasting it, but your physical body and where it's positioned. Analyze it all so that you really do get a bike that's a good fit, especially for something that is of quite a significant investment.
Fit for purpose. Okay, quick education on bikes. I had a naked bike, which basically means it has no fairing. It's just the bike itself. And then there's like a semi-faired bike where you have a little bit at the front, little windshield. And it is literally a windshield, not a windscreen. It's not the wrong word. It is English. And then you have a fully faired bike, which is probably a sports bike. There's loads of covers for aerodynamics. And the thing is, when I was buying a bike, I never ever wanted to go fast. It was never my purpose. I wanted a bike I could get on and January the 1st and July the 1st, and it's going to be ridden every single day. I didn't care if it was the prettiest. It was not what I went for. It was a nice blue color. That wasn't the point. But it was more about the function and the form and what it did for me. And I didn't want a bike that was so uncomfortable. Because here's the thing. A mate of mine went on a motorbike thing, went across France, and there were police bikers and all different sort of bikers. It was a not a job thing. But all the guys on there, like fully clad sports bikes, really fully fed. Every time they stopped, they were just walking around like pregnant women would do when they're really sore, because they were really sore. So they were buying literally pregnancy cushions when they could find them to sit on because they're hurt. And I just think, why? It's like fashion, but that's really uncomfortable. Why would you want to do that? Whereas me, I had a nice proper bike. I could sit up. It was very comfortable. It was going to be a daily thing. It was going to get me to work and back, and it had to be functional and practical. And that's the thing. That's where the excitement has to be something we're taking note of, because if that excitement then is like, but I really want the fed bike because it's much faster. Yeah, but I don't want to go fast. I never went. It was never my interest. I wanted something that would start in the morning, get me to work and back. That was it. I think I had 2 rides that were not work related in like however many years I was riding. It wasn't what I was doing. But understanding the form and the function of what we're trying to achieve helps us to understand, to celebrate the excitement, because hey, it's exciting. Of course it is. It's a big purchase. You should be excited. But if we know what it is we actually need rather than what we want, there's a thought, That's going to help us with our sensory health. And if we can go in not overreactive, I did have a bike with a road legal sports exhaust. That was quite nice. But that wasn't my goal. But for some people, that's the only thing that sells the bike. It's like, well, okay, so you've got an underreactive auditory system, but that's not a good reason to choose the motorbike with the legal exhaust that's super loud, because it's not actually good for other people. So you do have to think about other people.
Yeah. And that isn't that beautiful when you assess yourself, you look at what impact it has on others. That's what community is all about. That's the power of community. That's the power of thinking that we are not just in this individualistic society, which we probably are, but that's not, many of us are striving for that not to be the case. We want to be part of community. We want to be connected to other people. We want to help people. We want to speak into their lives, and we want to be humble enough to allow other people to speak into our lives, to give us advice or to help us grow and develop. So it's that would be the ideal. Yeah, check your own sensory health and check the impact of your choices on the sensory health of those around you.
Which means we need to have a really good understanding of what us being in a good, healthy place sensory wise would be, because of course we're all very different. And not just the fact there's men, there's women. Okay, there's two big differences, and how we're going to approach things in life will be different just because of our gender. So men might lean one way, women might lean another. I know a lady who'd like to bike, and she struggled because she was short and she was really tiny. So finding a bike that she wanted, well, you can't, because your feet can't touch the pavement. It's not going to happen. So she had to choose bikes around her physical stature, which was smaller. Most bikes would be generally, but made for people who are taller, not just men. And so she found a bike that was low enough for her, but she still got the enjoyment of riding, but it just wasn't on something that was too tall for her. The one she wanted, she couldn't have. Well, there's going to be stuff we're going to have to accept about us. Now, that's a physical restriction. She was like 3 foot nothing, but there are bikes that she could ride, and she found one. But actually, there are physical restrictions, and there are sensory restrictions that we do need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just my mind was taken just then to the builders that we've had recently in, and it was lovely. One of them specifically said, I thanked him for the quietness on site while they were doing their work. And he said, oh yeah, it's because I've now got it in my pocket. You know, I just put I've got my own phone, I've got my own music, and I've got my own earbuds and stuff. And I said, I just thanked him for it, because he'd paid attention to not only his own needs, but he'd come across somewhere else where they had appreciated, or I don't know if they spoke to him or quite what it was, but that his noise was affecting them. And he realized, well, it's not hard these days. You know, we just plug in our own phones, and that's we don't need the radios blaring like we used to. So that was a really lovely thing. It's like, how can we meet our own needs while respecting the impact of whatever it is that we have on other people?
Which, just coming back to the large financial purchases, I'm using the example of a motorbike from 17 years ago or something, but actually there is an importance of thinking about our family, our spouse, our children, even perhaps in-laws if they're with us. You know, how is this going to impact them? And that's the importance of having a really good sensory health as you're going in towards that procedure of what is it we need. And it should be a function. It's just, you know, I think we need to do this. Okay, we're going to do some research, we're going to look around, we'll go and look at some stuff. But remembering the people that you live with who are nearest to you is actually quite sensible. I'm sure I've said this one. It's quite funny. So the second bike I had a road legal sports exhaust. It was beautiful, completely legal. It was good. Anyway, our next door neighbours came to me one morning and she says, "Oh, I just wanted to talk to you about your motorbike," because I was a trucker at the time, getting up at 4 a.m. and I thought, I'm in trouble. They're not happy. I've done it as quietly as I can. There's a limit. It wasn't extra loud. It was nothing like that. I said, no, we love the sound. We're bikers. Didn't you know that? And they took me to the garage later and showed me all these bikes they had and stuff. But we love the sound of your motorbike. It woke us up at 4 o'clock. It was wonderful. Now, generally speaking, I would have anticipated we were woken at 4 o'clock. We're not happy, but they absolutely adored it, because to them, it was the start of an adventure. So the sound triggered something good for them.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's lovely. So it's finding out those, when you know that you've got something that is potentially like yours, it'd be worth finding who is it going to impact in my close community or immediately next to me, whether it be in like my brother's room next door, like in the house, or the neighbors, or somebody in the next office space. What is it that you're doing, and how to be courteous? I think, yeah, let's be courteous as well. It's lovely.
And in that scenario, I used to pull the bike out from the garage, shut the garage door, which was metal, and it used to reverberate around the cul-de-sac. So what did I do? A little bit further, so the exhaust was pointing down nothing into a field, and it made the noise could go further without affecting anybody. There are little things that we can do. That's just a motorbike exhaust, but there are little things that we can do. And like you said, if we're going to bring something to work, Joe's just next to me with her desk, and she's got a little light, the little Pac-Man lights that come on and off. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. I quite like it. But if they was really loud and flashing, I might have to say, could you turn it down? When we're doing these, you've got a little light above your head on my screen. But it says on air, it's big green light box, and everybody knows someone's talking on air. So, be quiet. Now, we've had to put a box around it because if I'm sitting here, it's too bright for me and I'm getting blinded. So even something that's for me, I don't need to see it. So we put it in a box, oddly, that everybody else who's walking anywhere near us can see it from a long way away. But it's thinking about other people, and it's being conscious of the fact that we impact the world around us and the people around us, which coming right back to what we talked about at the start. If someone's annoyed, the first question should be a question, not a statement. And I'm not confusing what I said. The first question needs to be a question, not a statement. Because if we say, what you're doing, that's stupid. Okay, that's not actually asking an answer. That's just venting and angry. Perhaps that person at the swimming pool was just having a really, really bad day. You can react and slap them or punch them. Probably wouldn't end well. Or you can actually try and take a pause back, which is hard in the moment, especially if they've shocked you, at which point your flight and fight might be kicking back, in which case, sorry, that's on you, kind of. But actually, it's recognizing that we impact people and why. Or is it okay if I do this? Yeah, that's fine. But can you tell me if it's still okay in a week's time? Because here's the other thing. People are very polite generally, especially British people. Yes, that's fine. Do what you like. Seething, raging under the surface. But actually, are you still just as happy with it? A week later, a month later, and actually make sure that people aren't now getting irritated by that thing that you've got that makes a little noise or the little waterfall they like that now means they have to go to the loo every 5 minutes because they're pregnant and you didn't know that. Follow up and ask a question that's actually a question.
Yeah, the follow-up is absolutely key because we think, because we want to do well by others, we want to give people that freedom to do what they'd like to do, and it kind of feels nice. But there also comes a point when things actually genuinely do get to somebody, they do get to you, and therefore it's really nice to be able to have that come back and say, well, actually. And then you could it doesn't take much, does it? You can just tweak something a little bit, just so then both parties are happy with the conclusions rather than thinking that, I've asked once and they were fine, so you can just carry on and all the rest of it. It's like, that's particularly courteous to be able to have a follow-up. I like that.
And make sure you're okay with a no. Would be really important. Don't bother asking if you're not happy for a no, because that's even worse. There we have it. We've looked at sensory healthy finances based on the idea of a motorbike purchase I made in 2006, 7, long time ago. But these things matter and they affect people. So let's ask questions that are questions. Because don't make a question that's a statement, because that's just rude. And thank you. If you want to connect with Laure Jackson, who runs Sante on Jersey, you can do the easiest way of getting hold of her. Go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ. Laure Jackson, thank you very much.
See you next time. Thank you.